Welcome to the Posture Dojo. I'm your host, Sam Miller. Join me on a journey of postural transformation. At 18, I was diagnosed with an 85-degree kyphoscoliosis and unable to undergo surgery. I spent years neglecting the reality of my posture. By 33, its impact became overwhelming, affecting my digestion, lymphatic system, and immunity. Driven by the need for a solution, I immersed myself in restorative movement, corrective breath work, and aligning gymnastics. Through these holistic practices, I defy gravity, rebuilding my body from within. Join us each week as we bring on experts from various fields to delve into practical techniques addressing postural challenges. This week, we have Zeena, who I'm seeing has been coaching in some of the largest office cubicle beehives in the world, helping people with their ergonomics and their posture. Zeena, who are you and what do you do?
Well, thank you, Sam. Yes, my name is Zeena Dhalla. I'm a Postural Alignment Specialist. I'm certified through the Egoscue method. I'm also an ergonomist, and I help individuals and teams get out of pain. I help desk warriors get movement back into their life. I help employees learn how to set up their desk correctly. So yeah, I do it all. And as you mentioned, one of my biggest customers, I'm very blessed to work with Google, Microsoft, Deloitte, a lot of the bigger companies in the recent years. So yeah, I love what I do. I'm really passionate about this, and I'm really excited
Beautiful.
to be here.
How would you know how many people you've guided or helped with postures at this point?
Oh, goodness. I've taught over 300 workshops virtually, and I would say we'd average about 40 people in a workshop. So you can do the math.
Yeah, a lot, thousands of people with their postures, and in particular, people who are working on their PCs most of the day, right?
Correct. Yeah, I specialize in helping the human body that was not designed to sit all day long or even stand all day long. I consider myself an expert in trying to help those beings be healthier, move more, and improve their posture so that they feel better throughout their day.
What is the most common issue that you see in these types of environments?
Yeah, it's really the immobility at the end of the day, right? So of course, we could get a better chair, we could get a better desk, we can get a better mouse and keyboard, but if you don't know how to use those pieces of equipment that I just mentioned, then it's not going to benefit you. And if you're stationary, using those pieces of equipment over and over again for hours on length without taking the breaks that your body needs, you're still going to kind of end up in an unhealthy place, So I would say, yeah, trying to get movement back into the life is what we need to be focused on.
How do you define somebody's best posture?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we're looking from the front angle, I really like to try to find as much symmetry as possible. We're not aiming for perfection, but if we're looking from the front and we see that the shoulders are uneven or the hips are uneven or there's a rotation in the body, so there's a twist happening where maybe, like in the case of scoliosis where you'll see that sort of rotation that happens where a rib will be closer to a hip and a rib will be further from a hip, or hands will be in the front or the back of the body differently from right to left. That's what we're looking for from the front, is trying to regain that symmetry. And then from the side angle, we're looking for a plumb line, so ear over shoulder, over hip, over knee, over ankle. And then, a nice lumbar curvature that isn't too excessive. That's hard to explain without showing on camera. And then a nice sort of curved mid-back or like straight mid-back with the perfect cervical curvature. It's hard to explain on a podcast, but generally, if we can find that alignment with the ear over the shoulder, over the hip, over the knee, over the ankle, that would be what would be defined as good posture.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of different advice. I think a lot of us are realizing, okay, the perfect posture is not, sitting up straight and finding that perfect, desk chair combo. It is this variability, right? And I at the moment, I think the best posture throughout the day to kind of aim for is whatever's comfortable for 15, maybe 30 minutes at a time, and then you're changing that whether you're sitting, standing, and then kind of in those positions being mindful with your breath.
Absolutely. And actually, what I described to you was stationary posture. There's movement posture too, right? So when we're looking at someone's gait cycle, when they're walking, how the cross patterning is happening, how the heel is hitting the ground, how the toe is coming off the ground, what the hips are doing. There's so much that we can talk about with movement and just walking alone, squatting, standing. So it's all part of the puzzle. Breathing being a significant part of that, as you mentioned. I know breathing is really big in how you help yourself recover. And so, yeah, when someone asks me perfect posture, I'll give them the visual imagery, but also the movement and how we move and show up in life is really
What
important.
what solutions have you seen in these more office type environments that allows for people to change this? Is it like a combination of the sitting standing desk? What do you think is like an ideal office, where you're working, I guess, majority on the PC and some phone?
No, great question. I love sit-stand desks. And I know there's a misnomer that if you get a sit-stand desk, you should be standing the whole time. It's really not that, because being immobile and stationary in your standing position is going to be almost as bad as immobile and stationary in your sitting position. So really, ideally, someone would have a sit-stand desk that has a setting where you press the button and it goes straight up. In fact, I have that, but I'm not going to do it now while I'm recording, because who knows? Sometimes wires can get caught. But yes, you want to be able to go up and down throughout the day, usually a 30-minute stand followed by a 1 to 2 hour sit and back and forth. And then stretching throughout the day. So taking movement breaks every 30 to 60 minutes is ideally what we want in terms of movement breaks. That can be doing posture exercises or stretches, hand stretches, or getting up and walking around on video calls, as well as, if you're really talking the specifics of ergonomics, proper, monitor setup, proper keyboards, proper mice, bring anything that can bring the body into a more neutral position for the longer range work, the typing, the mousing, the computer screen looking at. We want to also make sure those pieces of equipment are set up in neutral position.
Beautiful. Yeah, movement is a great posture. So any opportunity to walk, to be hands free, to be eyes free as well is also really important to take advantage of. And I guess that posture is part mindset, and seeing those opportunities to do that throughout your day. Let's go to the eyes, and let's go to maybe a newer part or a newer field in ergonomics, which is phones. Personally, I've moved a lot of my workflows to my phone, and that's kind of a different setup. I've seen you've suggested some. Maybe you could walk us through some best posture practices, or some ergonomic friendly postures for using the phone.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you for asking me that question. All right. So, the biggest thing with the phone is that we're constantly looking down at it, right? And so there's a lot that happens. And Sam, I know that you talk about this with the work that you do too, is it's not just the tension on the neck that happens when we're looking down, but it's also what happens to the rest of the body, right? The chest collapses, the lungs get repositioned, digestive system starts to shut down, the breathing becomes more shallow, right? So it's more than just the looking down at the neck, which tends to be what people focus on, is that sort of tech neck type of thing. So there's a lot that happens. So I like to encourage people to try to keep the phone directly in front of the face as much as we can, so that you don't have to get that flexion of the thoracic spine. So I'm going to back up so people can see me, and I'll try to describe it as best as I can. But if you're sitting in a waiting room, for example, okay, instead of crossing the legs, rounding the lower back and mid back, crossing the arms and kind of looking down, which is what I see a lot, right? There's a lot going on. We get that collapse. Yeah, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here, the body's inability to kind of breathe and expand through that rib cage. So instead, I would separate the knees, place the feet flat on the ground, hinge from the hips, bend over from the hips, place the elbows onto the knees, and then you're looking down at your phone this way, so your head is still in alignment with your spine. You get a nice deep hip flexion, which is really good for the spine, and you get a nice sort of extended upper back spine here. You can kind of use your elbows to push into the knees for this position. So that would be position number one. In terms of it, if you're working at your workstation and you're at your desk, you can place your elbows on the desk and have your phone directly in front of you, right? So if you've got your elbows resting on the desk here, you don't want to hold it up for too long because that can create a lot of tension in the neck and shoulders. But if you have something that you can rest your elbows on, that would be great. And then in terms of a standing position, hard to, standing, you're going to hold it up in front of you. You're going to get a lot of tension in your neck and shoulders. So when you're typing, I would say you can maybe put the head down for that. But again, try to think about not collapsing the chest and the rib cage too much. Or I like to, if you're scrolling, maybe place one hand across the waist, the other elbow on top of that fist, and that can kind of let that holding arm rest for a second, and you can scroll through your phone, and then obviously encouraging it being done on both sides, because a lot of what's happening with our technology is the asymmetry that's happening from right to left, right? So we're not, we're constantly mousing maybe with one hand, primarily the right hand. We're constantly holding our phone with one hand. And if that happens continuously for days and days on end, we can get a lot of those repetitive stress injuries.
Beautiful. Thank you. Those were awesome. I'd like to kind of continue on that a little bit. And this is, I got to give credit to Paul Check for bringing my attention to this. But the eyes, and they're either, whether they're looking down at our phone, and that's really kind of creating that forward neck kind of collapse, right? Which is increasing the weight of the head on the whole structure, causing the pain and the tension in the neck sometimes. And so in kyphosis correction, kyphosis forward neck, I've been working a lot with the head lever, from the tongue to the jaw to the nose breathing to the occipital, the back of the head, and how that is essentially kind of a lever we have at the top of our spine as we're doing different movements and breath work. And then adding in the eyes in this. And now the eyes actually have connections all the way through to the occipital, and you can actually feel your eyes in the back of your head when you're moving them left to right. You can actually feel your eyes, and to me, that's like this, like a leveler. Those construction levelers with the little green bubble in the middle. I think it's really been underestimated in the posture correction scene, is kind of utilizing this in these positions that we're spending a lot of time in, and I saw in the positions you shared, you're really angling yourself so that you do have your eyes kind of more direct. Your eyes aren't kind of looking down at the phone and kind of pulling your head forward that way. So by holding the phone more vertically, or even more with that chin tucked and your eyes a little bit higher, you're actually kind of creating that elongation that I love to see and love to do in whether it's static postures or these dynamic movements that we're doing for posture correction as well. So don't underestimate the angle of the back of your head, your eyes in your posture, especially with the forward neck kyphosis. It's a major piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. And you also bring up a point about eyes and the movement in the eyes. So as an ergonomist, one of the biggest issues we have is people's eyes being stationary and still for too long, right? We might be reading on a screen, but as hunters and gatherers, how our bodies were designed to function, we're supposed to move our eyes all over the place. So getting back to the mobility thing that we were talking about earlier, or getting the body moving, doing eye mobilization exercises is something that I really promote as well. So like, for example, if everyone just takes a moment and sits up tall, and if you take your hand and place it, just like Sam was talking, in the back of your head, so right above your neck, and then you just take your eyeballs and move them from right to left, you'll feel muscles moving back there. You'll be able to feel, I'd go a little bit lower, Sam, maybe hand like at the base of your neck, lower.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, down there. Yeah, right there. Perfect. Okay, I can't see where your hand is. And so you can feel the eyes go back and forth right there. And a lot of people struggle to do, like I actually just noticed you do it the first couple of times when you corrected it, which was they start to move their head when they move their eyes, right? So maybe doing some exercises I like to promote. And by the way, there's some tricks you can do. So for example, you can like check your range of motion. So maybe lift your arm up and see how high it goes, and then do some eye exercises and retest your range of motion, and you will notice you'll get more range of motion because your eyes were designed to move, and if they haven't had their full range of movement, the brain starts to interpret that in ways of shutting down the muscles around the eyes as well, which would be the neck muscles, right, or the shoulder muscles. So if we could do eye exercises like vertical saccades or horizontal saccades, which is where you'll, take your hands out, thumbs out, and alternate the eyes up and down without moving your head, you can sometimes notice changes in range of motion. So it's really amazing. It's great for the body. It can also calm us down because we're doing neuromuscular work. It's not just, no muscular work is without the brain, right? It's all integrated. But yeah, I love integrating eyes into posture movement as well and ergonomic work. We actually teach a class called 5 visual exercises for your daily life, and we can go through the different visual exercises that you can do at your desk.
Beautiful. I personally love the Infinity Eights eye movements. I think the eight
Yes.
infinity shape is great just to cover the whole range of motion. Same thing with the hips. If we're moving those around, getting infinity kind of flows in there are amazing for it as well.
Absolutely. So in terms of the eyes too, I love the clock. I don't know if you've done the clock where you'll do a 12 and a 1 o'clock and a 2 o'clock and just kind of work your way around and sort of see. And you can tell too where you're weak. So just like if you were to do hip work or back work and you can go, okay, that part of my back is strong, but that part of my back is weak, you can feel it on your eyes. So you'll feel in certain directions, certain strain. You might like have a slight headache or, something like that to sort of hits you in that position. So yeah, you can do that. And then in terms of the hips, yeah, I love the figure 8 that you mentioned because that sort of movement works the femur bone in internal and external rotation and abduction and adduction. So you're genuinely working all ranges
Covering
of
the
motion there. And
bases.
that's, again, back to
Yeah.
mobility. Covering the bases,
Uncovering
exactly. We could also do like,
uncovering parts of our system that have shut down, it seems, right?
well, yeah, I don't know if you've noticed this with the work that you do, but I've noticed that when people walk and they tend to walk with their feet turned out. And so what we've lost is that ability for those feet, so your femur bones or your thigh bones, right? They connect into your hip and they need to be able to turn out and turn in. And when we walk and we plant our foot and you take that foot behind you, the femur has to be able to turn in. If it doesn't, it's very slight. You can't really see it like visually if you're not, if you're looking for it, but there is a slight internal rotation that happens. If we're not taking that movement, it shows up elsewhere in the body. So doing movements like the figure 8 that you described can really work that range of motion, get us lubricated, so to speak, in that range of motion.
You briefly touched on the neurosystem, the neuromuscular connections that we have. I've really been intrigued by the theory of Dr. Roth in the 70s, who made a hypothesis that a lot of scoliosis, a lot of the idiopathic undiagnosed scoliosis, was potentially caused by some restriction of the central nervous system, inhibiting the
Mm-hmm.
spinal cord in some way as the vertebrae the spinal column, the vertebral column continued to grow, and that freezing of the spinal column the freezing of the spinal cord while the spinal column continues to grow creates a warping effect that looks like scoliosis, like when you have kind of a drawstring and it's bunched up a little bit, on your pants drawstrings and it's bunched up. It has that same warping effect, that derotating kind of warp that happens in the scoliosis. And as I've been going deeper and deeper into my work and my own personal experience, when I'm able, I'm practicing various methods, whether I'm going to sleep, whether I'm awake, whether I'm in these primal positions, these deep squats, some of these, Schroth method gymnastics. In all of these positions, I'm benefiting not by, forcing and pushing and trying to elongate. I'm allowing my mind, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, allowing my mind to relax and allowing that space to happen. And I feel incredible alignment. It seems to
Yeah.
relax that spinal cord and allow that spinal column to align. So let's dive into that. What do you like? What do you get in that area in terms of relaxing the central nervous system and spinal cord in various practices?
Oh my goodness, so much to say. I love it. Okay, so yes, 100%. So people have this misnomer that when I talk about the plumb line, ear over shoulder, over hip, over knee, that it's about a stiff plumb line. No, we need to achieve this plumb line, just like you're saying, through neuromuscular changes, through the body, without even having the brain, without having to think about it too much, being able to find this positioning, right, in a way. And relaxing and changing the mind, trying to get the mind to relax or to let go of certain things is a really important piece of that. So in the Egoscue method, we have a different kinds of exercises that we use to align someone's body. So we can do, like you were talking about, an athletic Trikonasana pose against the wall. Okay, we call that triangle pose. We could do something like that. It's pretty athletic, right? Lots of muscles working, lots of internal, external rotation happening, and flexion. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. We have those kinds of exercises. We have isometric contractions, which are all about firing a muscle and then relaxing a muscle, right? Because the muscle has to be contracted, but it also needs to know how to relax. So we have isometric contractions. We'll have just a regular stretch that you might hold for a minute on each side. That's sort of your standard static stretch. You're going to have some dynamic stretches. But then the one thing that makes Egoscue unique, although maybe not so unique because it sounds like you've done some of this work with your work that you do, is we have these long hold stretches. So the long hold stretches will put somebody in a position, will blockade their body by maybe laying them on the ground and maybe blocking the foot from turning out and maybe sticking a foot on a wall so that the hip is sort of, stationary, or put straps around the knees so that the knees can't go a certain way. And then we allow the client to simply relax. And it could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 50 minutes of that kind of work. And when I have clients doing a menu of exercises, which is how they work with me, I'll give them a menu of exercises and they do them every day. I'll instruct them that during this long hold stretch, I highly recommend they do some sort of meditation, whether that's trauma work, release work that they're listening to, whether that's breathing, body scans, chakra meditation, does not honestly matter to me, whatever works for the client and their particular issue. But to try to calm the brain down, get it to release, like you said, and then we start to see changes happen in the body, and we start to see changes that stick, changes that because then we follow that up with a strength type of work or a gymnastic type of work, then we can really see the body stay shifted long term. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do we let go? How do that specific practice and in all of those different positions that you described, that key is okay. Try, even just I'm careful about trying, because trying is an intention and intention is literally intention. So this release, this letting go, and when I'm in some of these positions, I let go and I think I've let go. And then, or sometimes it's, myofascial work on the medicine ball, and I think, okay, I've let go, it's melted, I'm through. And then I'm like, whoa, okay, no, I'm going a deeper layer. Like it takes a lot of time. But what's your best tip for relaxing and letting go in these positions to allow that to happen?
Oh, such a good question. And it's going to take me into a slightly different realm, which is mind-body work. So if you don't mind, I'm going to departure a little bit. But I think that a lot of what we hold on to in our bodies, so be it a tight hip flexor, be it a locked up rib cage, be it a neck that won't turn, oftentimes comes from our emotions and our trauma. And so I'd say almost all the time it comes from our emotions and trauma. And so I think the best solution to that is less just laying there and trying to get it relaxed. I mean, those things you can do, awareness, mindfulness, really important. But I consider that kind of like the stretch surface layer. Let's go deep. Let's figure out what's the root cause of this particular muscle tightness. And that can come down to what happened to you in your childhood, what your triggers are, right? What your traumas are. I have been able to overcome a 15-year-long pain, pelvic floor related pain with muscles that stayed chronically tight. And the hard thing about pelvic floor is they're hard to access, and I was able to overcome a lot of that through understanding my triggers and understanding what around me in my childhood and things of that nature that was creating me to hold on so tight. So for specifically, I'm obviously not going to be, the person the practitioner, so to speak, that I'd recommend for that because I'm not certified or trained in that. But therapy is really great, obviously. I'm a really big fan of EMDR work. So EMDR work uses the eyes and eye movement, as we were just talking about, Sam, to help retrain and calm down trauma in the brain. So if there's something that triggers you and it comes from an incident that happened in your childhood, you would do EMDR work around that incident to try to calm down the mind's reaction to that trauma, so to speak, right? I'm also a really big fan of inner child work. So understanding what you were missing as a child and giving that reparenting to yourself, that can really hugely make progress in this regard. So I'm always encouraging my clients to look a little deeper if we are at a roadblock. So if we have gotten to a point where there is a part of the body that's not shifting or not moving the way that it should, then let's go deeper. Let's figure out why the brain is still holding on to that posture deviation.
Beautiful. I'm in agreement with all of that, and yeah, it is a important part of the process. These things can begin at a very young age, and they can be held for so long that we may not even know that they're there, and that's potentially the most challenging part of transforming and healing is becoming aware of these things, like realizing that we're actually holding these muscles that we don't even know exist, that don't need to be held like that. And in order for us to completely relax, to allow that expansion, that elongation, and that alignment, we have to arrive to that awareness. So yeah, this is I guess this is where I'm exploring in this space, and yes, going to the scene of the crime, I think is necessary. It's hard, but necessary to understand where we're at. If we spend our lives, standing up straight and ignoring that we have this weakness or this tightness in our posture, and we're just trying to hide it and stand up, we're creating additional compensations and locking in a lot of those issues. So it can be a raw, heavy process to let go and collapse and go in and go deep and go to that original scene. But that is where healing begins.
100%. And if I could give a personal story around this. So a couple of years ago, I was struggling with some sort of neck and shoulder pain. And that is really frustrating as a postural alignment specialist because you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I look great and my body should be functioning properly. What's happening on the inside here that's causing this problem? And a client at the time turned me on to a company, and I'll give the plug, Curable, big fan. It is an app as well as a program that really digs deep into sort of the psychology and the awareness, the trauma, the emotional trauma behind physical issues. And so I had, downloaded the app and I was doing some of the activities in the app, and one of them was a meditation. And the meditation asked me to really kind of open and release my mind and think deeper, pull the layers apart. And it was maybe the second or third time I had done the meditation. So I was sort of familiar with where it was going to take me. And finally, one day I'm lying still and it hits me, this has to do with failure. This has to do with the fear of failure. And I, at the time, had been working on a new project, something I was really nervous about, something that I had imposter syndrome about, for sure. And so I took that information in my brain and did a little bit of journaling around it. And the next day, pain gone, virtually gone. So obviously I jumped on that bandwagon, and Incurable is what I can, aspire to. That has really helped me get through my pelvic floor work and dysfunction, as in addition to the biomechanic work that I know how to do, working with a proper physical therapist, doing my own posture work pretty much daily. All of it combined is what has given me personal success from point A to point B. But yeah, it could, and if I were to dig even deeper on that fear of failure, if I were to dig into my childhood, really great childhood, but also there was a lot of expected of me growing up in terms of where I would go to school, where I would go to college. So if you can really always just dig a little bit deeper and get to that root cause of what it is, so now obviously I know my triggers and I'm able to speak to them and recognize when sometimes I'm pushing myself harder than I need to, and give myself a pat on the back when I need to, because I'm not failing in life. I'm actually doing pretty darn good. So I'll take it, you know.
Amazing. I mean, that is the right way to look at postures, right, from these multiple dimensions, and it's as if the body is a giant biomechanical organism to carry around the sensory processing brain, right? And if things are going on
Yeah.
up here, it can show, and the body keeps the score. Is an amazing one on that. When it comes to uh, resetting the slate, I've recently found that relaxing either before bed. You could do it in a gym, but it's probably more appropriate at night when you're going to sleep, when you're relaxing, or even when you're waking up and there's that twilight zone in between sleep and awake, and you're in this highly relaxed state. Um, I've found a lot of benefit in the kyphoscoliosis alignment to enter a deep state of relaxation in the fetal position, being mindful of my eye posture and occipital position there to elongate and extend the spine. That that state, I've felt some incredibly deep alignments happen. So I would recommend that. Very easy one to try, because we're already curled up and relaxed in that at that time. So it's a great pose to go into.
I love that. And I mean, so you're basically speaking to going into deep flexion, both thoracically and lumbar flexion. And then, I mean, I'm assuming deep breaths that kind of expand the rib cage. And yeah, exactly. Eye placement's really important for that. I teach a little morning, a mini class for corporate on evening exercises before sleep, and then exercises when you wake up in the morning, pendiculation, sort of that stretchy that you do in the morning. So I love that you found what works really well for you, especially probably for your scoliosis. But same thing for anybody. I think bringing the body sort of calmer into that flexion position is really important. And then the opposite when you wake up. So getting out of bed, yeah, doing maybe some cats and dogs, or cat cow as you might call it. Just some shoulder rolls, moving into like a little bit of extension. And then just starting to kind of open up the heart to the sky. So you can think of it from a biomechanics standpoint, and then you can think of it from an emotional standpoint. So we're going to wake up now, and we're going to open our energy, and we're going to give it to your crown chakra, or whatever you believe in, whatever deity you might believe in. You're going to sort of open up that spirit and open up your chest at
Beautiful.
the same time.
Yeah, it's covering the bases, feeling those ranges of motions. There's a lot of in scoliosis, obviously cobra isn't something you want to overextend because you've already got a hyperextension in the kind of lumbar spine and going into positions. So a lot of people think, oh, I just shouldn't go into extension. Oh, you do want to feel like where is your range of motion? That's not the dangerous or the risky or the ill-advised part. The part is, it's about feeling these ranges of motions, understanding your body in those positions, and what's limiting you in those positions, what's tighter, what's not. It's I think a very useful part of that first phase, which is that awareness in terms of figuring out kind of where you're at. Um, I do want to add to that that flexive, fetal position state. It's the fetal position because that's the original form when we started forming our spine in embryo. It is in that flexive
Yep.
state before we kind of develop the curves to start dealing with gravity, right? So going back,
Yeah,
cleaning the
totally.
slate completely before we kind of stand up for
The
the
child,
day.
coming back to the little child.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Coming back to our little child, right? That I was just saying, getting back to the root of it all.
Before we
So
had to deal
important.
with gravity.
Exactly. And then we should probably be renaming this particular series called Posture from the Inside Out.
Exactly. Yeah, love
Yes.
it. All right. We can wrap up here. Any last words around, I guess a message that you would share to other people who are, figuring out their relationship with gravity right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would start with the inside out. Look at the emotional work, look at the trauma work, and then, find practitioners for that. It is there's plenty of practitioners like us out there that you can work with one-on-one, or courses that you can take that will help kind of guide you through some of the emotional trauma work. And then coming up a little bit of layer, let's look at the fascia. Let's do some, foam rolling or stretching or massage work. And then let's look at strength. Where are you strong? Where are you weak? Where are you tight? So, and then let's look at breath and how are we breathing? And then finally the eyes, and where are they and how are we moving them? Those sort of 5 layers, starting kind of deep down in that root chakra up through the body. If you can hit them all at some point on your journey, a little bit here and there, I think you'll be in good shape.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing your work and your insight and your perspective, Zeena. Where can people enter your world, and what do you have to offer them in that world?
Absolutely. So I work with individuals and I work with corporate teams. So for individuals, I do postural alignment therapy and individual ergonomic assessments. For teams, we can be your outsourced ergonomic team. Also, we can do wellness workshops in posture and ergonomics. So you can find me at verticalign.com. It's verticalign.com. And again, my name is Zeena Dhalla.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We wish you the best on your postural journey. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for having me.